Hey guys, welcome to this new tutorial series. We are going to focus on Scikit-learn, and in this case we want to focus on preprocessing, and we want to start with one hot encoding. That is a way we can encode categorical variables into numerical ones. This is done because a lot of modeling techniques require our inputs to be numerical. They cannot handle categorical variables, for instance, k-nearest neighbors or SVMs. So to motivate that or to explain it to people that do not know what is one hot encoding doing, you can look at an example here where we have the category or categorical column animal that in the first row we have dog, second we have cat. So it will be transformed to two different numerical columns, one dog and cat, containing one if the row had this particular instance or not. So in the first case, the first row has dog, so it will be 1, 0, and the second row has cat, so it will be 0, 1. So there will be as many columns as different categories we have in the categorical variable. So then, with this new categorical or numerical, let's say, values, we can use that to our model of our choice, and we can just uh, use it without any problems. Okay, so I will leave this Jupyter notebook in the description if you want to play. So we're going to start by importing the usual libraries, and we're going to import the data we want to work with. I decided to work with this toy dataset, the Melbourne data, which is about price data of houses. So we have land size, number of bedrooms, bathrooms, and the category region. Okay, so it's where the house is located in Melbourne. So you can, as usually, we separate for X and Y, and we get the types. So we can see region name is type object, which is a category. So we would like to one hot encode this. Okay, so if you have a look at that, we can see that in so this is has 8 different categories, being the most frequent one, Southern Metropolitan, and having 2,100 instances of that. Okay, so also you can say the unique in order to see which are the names of the unique categories. You have Northern, Western, Eastern, Southern. You get an idea of what is in this column. So this is our dataset. Okay, so what is, as I said before, our goal? To encode these into zeros and ones with the categories. So if you have seen, I loaded the data into a Pandas data frame. And fortunately for us, Pandas has a function that is for get dummies that does exactly what we want. So it's a very easy solution, but it has its drawbacks, which I will explain to you in a second. So if you run that, we can see what it really created what we are looking for. So we have these 8 new categories, columns, one for each category, containing a 1 if it has a category. So you can see here that it matches northern metropolitan, and zeros all the other rows. Okay, so this is a very easy to do approach to get one hot encoding, but it has its drawbacks. I will explain now. Okay, so first of all, what happens here? It creates from the data we input the additional categories based on the number of different additional columns based on the number of different categories the data has. But what if now we want to use the model to train our data and we have only one row and we want to credit that? So we have to transform that row into a dataset that the model understands, and the model understands a dataset with 8 additional categories with 0 and 1. So if we only have one instance or one row, how do we transform that into 8 categories? There must be a way that we tell how to encode that. And this is not stored in getDummies. So if we now do that again with a dataset with less categories, we will get less number of columns here. So that's a problem if we are working with train and test splits. If you are just going to play around with Scikit-learn or whatever, you can just use that. But if you want to just do it correctly, separate between train and test, and do the transformations appropriately, you need to have a way to store that information. So for instance, also it's another problem. What if in our test dataset we have 9 categories? If you use the getDummies function, you will get 9 additional categories here, but the model only is expecting 8. So it will raise an error saying that the data does not match what the model is expecting. Okay, so you can see that this is not a good idea to do in a more advanced way. Okay, so what we're going to use is the One Hot Encoder of Scikit-learn. To give you a summary, first of all, we need to instantiate it, and with this simple command, One Hot Encoder, and we can say different parameters, which I will talk about them later. And then we need to feed the transform, the One Hot Encoder. This is what I said before. The encoder will learn how to transform the data, and then it doesn't matter how the new data is imputed to the encoder, it will know that it has to have 8 different categories and how they must be. Okay, so this is how we do that. We can say fit and the data, or we can just fit transform. If we say fit, it only learns with this data. We said fit transform, it learns from the data and also transforms the data. We will see that example. And finally, if we have new data, for instance test, we can say transform test, and it will transform accordingly to what it was fit this test data. So I can show an example here, but as a remark, it's not as easy as in Pandas. Here we need to do an extra steps. First of all, I will run that and we'll show you step by step what happens. We just instantiate here the One Hot Encoder by importing it from Scikit-learn Preprocessing. We instantiate it with some parameters here, and then what is important is that it has to fit and be transformed with only the categorical variables we want to transform. In the getDummies, it automatically knows which colors to transform, but in One Hot Encoder we have to specifically say which variables we want to transform. And so here fit transform. So we will get this region name in AU. You can look into that. We will get this transformation. Okay. Also about the 8 different encoders as we get with that. But to get that result, as we can see here, we need when we had One Hot Encoder, we lose the index, that is this number here, and the column names. So we just need to use these 2 rows of code, lines of code, to get the index as we were before, and to get the column names as the number of categories. Finally, we need to join back this with the numerical values. Okay, so you said X numerical train. This is the X original minus the categorical rows. We can see here, this is what we have. And we have to concat that with the, as I said, the transform columns. So if you have a look at new X, is the cat, we can see now that we have exactly as before, the first numerical variables and then the One Hot Encoded categorical variables. So it's a little bit more tricky to use One Hot Encoder than the getDummies, but as I said before, it stores the information about how the transformations need to be done, and it's much more powerful when working with the train and test datasets. So I wanted to show you one of the parameters we can have when we instantiate it. That is the mean frequency. You can see here, this is the frequency of the different categories. We have these ones that are really underrepresented. Okay, so we can say 2%, 0.3%. So there's few of them. So what we can do is we can group them together in an infrequent category. So you can see here, we will be working with 8 different rows. It's too much. Maybe working with 5 is enough. Okay. So as we can see here, we can specify this threshold, let's say 0.5. So we will get all of these categories as before, but all of that inside a one category that will be infrequent class. Okay, so if we repeat the same as before, now we get this new train that only has 5 categories. The 4 ones corresponding to these more represented classes, and the 4th one that groups all of these instances. And this is very interesting. So, and finally, we have here is handle unknown. This is what I said before. What happens if in the test data we have a new variable? that on a new category that was not in train, what would happen? So if we set the instantiation handle as error, it will raise an error and it will stop, so it won't be encoded, and we have to solve that by hand, whatever we want to do. Also, we can set ignore, that what we do is, if we have a new category that has not been seen in training data, it will have a row of all zeros, so we'll have the 5 different values as zeros. Or if we created that with an infrequency threshold, we will map this new unseen category to the infrequent class. So it's a very nice workaround to handle, train, and test. Okay, so that's the end of what I want to say about hot encoding. Hope you learn a lot, or a little bit less, of this Scikit-learn preprocessing tool. If you have some comment, please, or doubt, please leave a comment down below and I will for sure answer you. So hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next video.